Hi everybody. What am I doing here? Why is this happening to me? Is this really what I want to do? Now these are definitely not questions I'm asking myself right now. In fact, I'm delighted to be here with all of you. But these are questions that I've asked myself several times in my life. Love to see a show of hands. How many of you have asked such questions to yourself? Wonderful. For those who have asked yourself this question, you're well on the journey of reinvention. You know, whenever tough things happen to us, the question that we all ask ourselves is, oh God, why is this happening to me? Yeah? The minute you ask that question, you're putting yourself in a victim mindset. You're becoming powerless and helpless. If you just change one word and make it, why is it happening for me? You immediately shift to becoming a powerful person. Somebody who can learn and grow. It is happening for me so that I can learn from this and grow from that. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the essence of reinvention. What I'm going to do in the next 15 minutes is share 3 personal stories from my life, how I've reinvented myself, and then I've tried to distill that into a framework which hopefully will be of use to you. The first story is set in the 1980s. Probably almost nobody here would have been born that time. But I come from Chennai, from a typical middle class family, led a very sheltered life, 10 years, same school, studied very hard, played gully cricket, didn't know anything outside of the big wide world. I, in the 11th grade, decided that engineering is what I should do. Like everybody else, wrote the IIT exam, got completely rejected. Then at those days, you couldn't get admission into a private engineering college in Tamil Nadu because of quota. And then applied to other colleges and got into BITS Pilani. And then I looked up on the map, there was no internet those days, as to where is this place called Pilani. It's a tiny village in Rajasthan. So here I am, packed my bags, went to Rajasthan. And the first few months were very, very tough. Here I was from a very, sheltered life in Chennai into Rajasthan, barely knew a few words in Hindi. I thought I was like a very good student in my school, but I realized that the guys here were much smarter, much better, and I had to really struggle to keep my head above water. And that's when I felt I should just go back. But one friend of mine called Pattu, he sat me down and said, Rajesh, you know, here we are here to build a career for ourselves, and this is the foundation that we are building. There are going to be short-term pains that we have to go through to get to a long-term gain. And that sort of stayed with me and said, yes, I'm going to go through these short-term pains so that I can get to the long-term gain. So what did I do? Studied very hard. Started learning Hindi on my own. Started enjoying jalebi and matri for breakfast. And really made friends from across different, states of India. And over time, I grew from a very studious, meek, shy, introvert person to somebody who was resilient and confident and who could, wanted to learn and grow in this world. So that was my first story. The second story is fast forward 25 years. In these 25 years, I finished my engineering. I did my MBA from XLRI. Then I went on to work for companies like Reckitt, Marico and PepsiCo. Then I landed up in Hindustan Times as the marketing head for the company. Loved the work, lovely people to work with, but then I felt stuck. I wanted to be a general manager, a managing director, and I also wanted to get back to consumer products. So I applied to various companies and I got through to Perfetti. Now Perfetti, as you all know, makes Alpenlibe, Mentos, Chupa Chups and so on and so forth. Wonderful company, great brands, but there was a small catch. The job was in Bangladesh. So I've never been to Bangladesh. Then I said, okay, I had a chat with my family. Do you think you guys would be ready to move with me? They were initially hesitant, but we as a family moved to Bangladesh. Now I land up in Bangladesh, new country, new company, new category, new culture, everything was new. And on top of it, my boss's role was vacant, so there was no boss. And 4 out of my 8 direct reports were less than a month old in the company. And then I said, okay, what has got me so far is not going to get me to where I want to go. And one of the big things that I had to do was unlearn whatever I had learned and relearn. And that's something I started doing. So what is the first thing I did? Spoke to a lot of leaders. Can you please tell me what does a managing director do? One thing that they said stayed with me. You are a sales and marketing person. Make sure you spend less time on that and spend more time on operations, finance and supply chain, which is outside your comfort zone. That's where you will learn a lot of things. I did that, became a very well-rounded general manager. I also used to connect a lot with people in the organization. So my thing was, every week I used to pick 3 people, connect with them, irrespective of level, designation, role, location. You know, one of the chats I had was with the front office receptionist. Her name I still remember, Rima Mustafa. And she said, sir, you know, Muslim men can pray anywhere in the office. But for Muslim women to pray, we need privacy. The minute she said that, the very next day, we converted a visiting manager's cabin into a prayer room for women. And once we were able to win their hearts, they would do anything to sort of, help the company to grow. And it was during this time that I sort of reinvented myself from a very strong marketing professional to a much more well-rounded, inclusive general manager who could take and galvanize a team, a diverse team, to achieve the objectives that we had to achieve. So that was my second story. The third story is 2 years ago. By this time, I had come back from Bangladesh to Perfecti India. Initially, I was Chief Transformation Officer. Then I got promoted to Managing Director. I ran the company from 2018 to 23. 5 years, lovely years, but very tough because of COVID. And as you know, sales of confectionery products really collapses during COVID. But despite that, we doubled our business in 5 years. We became 5 times great place to work. So all wonderful things. And that's when I was thinking, what would I like to do in the next chapter of my life? And I revisited my personal mission statement, which I'd written some time back. One integral part of the mission statement was to positively inspire and impact people around me. While I was doing this in my work, I just felt that if I were to do something else, I could impact more people at scale. So what did I do? I got myself certified as a leadership coach. So I started coaching and mentoring senior leaders in companies, and that helped me create more impact. The second thing I did was advisory consulting work in the areas of strategy and business transformation. The third thing, workshops in the areas of leadership development and strategy. Now all of these helped me to create much more impact than what I could have done otherwise. But was it all easy? Absolutely not. One of the things that I realized was, when you're not working anymore, all that you were used to completely changes. There was no routine, there were no goals to chase, no targets to meet, no salary getting credited at the end of every month in my account. People who I thought were my friends slowly started disappearing, and all sorts of things were happening. But then I told myself that this is my purpose and this is what I want to do, and I would continue to do that. Yeah? And as a result of all of this, what happened? I could broaden my perspective. I'm passionate about photography. I had my first mixed media exhibition. And my wife and I, we started discussing an idea for a book on a topic very close to both our hearts called Nurturing Leadership. And then we said, let's interview a few leaders, get us some ideas from them, form hypothesis, and write a book. What started like that, eventually we interviewed 117 CEOs on how do they nurture themselves physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and how they nurture others. And all their best practices went into the book called The Nurturing Quotient, which got published by Penguin in June of last year. So these were some of the things that give me deep satisfaction. I also used this time to travel extensively, reconnected with old friends, and made new friends. And this way, I reinvented myself from a multifaceted FMCG leader to a multidimensional leader who could impact people to discover their potential and who could help companies devise their strategy. So these are the three stories that I wanted to share with you. And what I've tried to do now is try to distill some learnings from this and share that with you, which I hope would be of use to you. You know, I came across this very interesting quote on the internet. It said, if necessity is the mother of invention, growth is the mother of reinvention. And I thought that was quite nice. So what did I do? I took growth and I tried to create an acronym with it, which I hope is useful for you. So what does G stand for? G stands for growth mindset versus fixed mindset. The best way to explain this is, in a fixed mindset, the question that you ask yourself is, can this happen? And there can be an answer yes, and there can be an answer no. When you are in a growth mindset, the question that you ask yourself is, how can this happen? Then there is no for an answer. So when you are in the process of reinventing, always come with a growth mindset, and that can open up possibilities for you. The R stands for reach out and connect. There are two dimensions to it. One dimension is actively network, right? Make sure that networking is not a bad word. In fact, networking is very much required. And one of the things I learned was always network when the going is good, not when you have the back against the wall. And keep a credit in your network balance. It will come handy at some point of time. The second dimension of reaching out is, reinvention is a very lonely and a tough journey. You need people around you to whom you can reach out, share your fears, share your concerns, your vulnerabilities. So therefore, make sure that you reach out and connect. The O stands for own your strengths. It starts with a very deep awareness of the self. What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? What are my values, beliefs? And only when I understand myself very well, can I reinvent myself to something else, right? So own your strengths is very important. The W is about wisdom to know when to change. Yeah, because very often what happens when we are in a tough situation, we either become resigned and say, this is how life is. Or we are in an inertia mode and say, it will get okay at some point of time, right? But having the wisdom to know when to change is very, very important. The T stands for take the leap and get out of your comfort zone. I think the greatest learning happens when we get out of comfort zone. So one question I ask myself every once in a while is, when did I last get out of comfort zone? And I want to share a small story with you. Last year, August, I decided that I'm too much of an extrovert person. I want to go a little inward. So I was chatting with a friend and he said, why don't you go and do Vipassana meditation program? My immediate response was, there is no way I can do it. No phone, no talking, no book, no paper, no pen for 10 days, not possible. But even as I said that, I became aware and I had the wisdom that that is exactly probably what I wanted to do and what I had to do. So I decided to take the leap and just signed up for Vipassana. And then I did this program in January. Was it easy? Absolutely not. But it was so enriching for me, and I've taken some learnings from that which I am now using in my everyday life. Right? And H stands for habit formation. So you have the awareness that I have to do something. You set an intention, I will do something. You have to start taking actions, and when you take actions consistently over a period of time, these become habits, right? So that, ladies and gentlemen, is my growth model for reinventing yourself. Growth mindset versus fixed mindset, reach out to people, own your strengths. W is wisdom to know when to change. T is take the leap. H is habit formation. In summary, we all have plans in our life. Unfortunately, life has its own plans also. So it's very important for us to figure out that when do we reinvent ourselves and how do we reinvent ourselves. There is a famous quote I came across, Brianna Weist. She said, your life is not somewhere else waiting for you. It is actually waiting for your permission. So what are you waiting for? Go ahead and take the leap. Thank you.